And welcome to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable with our community outreach with Yale University Veterans Legal Services Clinic. Today is Saturday, April 1st, 2023. April is Sexual Assault Month, Minority Health, and Autism Awareness Month. You just heard our host, Kelley, at the top of the hour. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Executive producers Glenda Smith, our digital media producers, Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have a panelist with us today as Sullivan. She's a law student intern at the Yale Veterans Legal Service Clinic. And Adam Henderson. He's also a law student and an intern at Yale Veterans Legal Clinic. And we're going to talk about Yale's Veterans Legal Service Clinic, their studies and research and findings with the Monk versus the United States and the Black veteran disparities and how they've been treated with benefits and the like. How are you doing today?
Hi, Sean. Thanks so much for having us. We're excited to be here.
Our pleasure. So tell us a little bit of background about the Monk case. We've had his brother on our show before, but we want to get into a little bit more detail so people that may not be aware of his situation. Tell us who Monk was or is and what happened in his situation as a Vietnam vet.
Yeah, absolutely. So our client, Conley Monk Jr., is a Black Vietnam veteran who was improperly denied education, housing, and disability benefits after he was discharged from the military due to PTSD in 1970. And he was improperly denied benefits until 2015. So he lost out on decades of potential money and opportunities as a result of that situation. And Mr. Monk and other Black service members kind of suspected racial biases and inequities within the VA for decades, but they weren't able to prove it. And so in February 2021, Mr. Monk's organization, which is the National Veterans Council for Legal Redress, joined the Black Veterans Project and worked with our clinic to file a Freedom of Information Act request with the VA, through which we sought information about the administration of service-connected disability compensation. And that kind of confirmed the suspicions that that veterans and veterans organizations had for decades about these inequities within the VA. So those documents showed a statistically significant difference in VA claim outcomes between white and Black veterans. And so our lawsuit is on behalf of Mr. Monk, basically seeking reparations from the VA for those kind of decades of racial bias that Mr. Monk experienced.
So, Adam, can you tell us a little bit about how pervasive this problem was throughout history? And is it still a problem today with veterans that return home from Afghanistan, people that have returned home from Iraq, the current conflicts? Is this something that's still going on right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is not something that is limited just to the Conley Monk era. This is something that is currently going on in the VA. We have data that shows that there is still a difference between claim outcomes between Black and white veterans. And it's also gone back as far as Conley Monk's father. So Conley Monk Sr., Conley Monk's, our client's father, also experienced veteran benefit denials. And that shows that this is pervasive throughout the decades and showing that Black veterans are being treated as second class to their white counterparts. So they went and died on the battlefield. They served honorably, but then when they get home, they're treated differently based on their race.
And what were some of the tactics that were used to deny veterans, Black veterans and minority veterans, their benefits? What kind of things were done to somehow hide this or mask this from the public for years and years?
Right. So it's essentially the VA not taking into account things that impact Black veterans more. So, for example, Black vets are more often discharged with a less than honorable discharge, and then the VA, for Mr. Monk, kept denying him veterans benefits based on that initial outcome. And when he asked for it to be, relooked at, they didn't. And Mr. Monk highly suspects that that's because of his race. So not taking veterans at their word. The clinic works with Black veterans all the time who are, viewed as lesser than by psychologists and psychiatrists and by people at the VA who don't believe their symptoms. And, a white veteran would be a lot more likely to have a VA claims adjuster believe them or, think that what they're saying is true. So these are some of the tactics that they use. And also, one big thing that the VA did is the absence of a clear way to track claims outcomes based on race. So they knew about this problem. We have recent FOIA documents that show that people at the highest level of VA knew that there was a difference between Black and white veterans' outcomes, and they chose to do nothing about it. So it's that active denying Black veterans their benefits, but it's also the passive choosing to do nothing about a problem that has been suspected by Black veterans for years.
Claire, this turns my stomach to hear these problems. I mean, it's really sickening for the idea that a person could serve in the military, put their life on the line, and then go through such racial just inequity. It doesn't make any sense to me from a perspective that after all these years, this is 2023, we're still seeing these types of problems. So can you tell me a little bit about what your clinic is doing and how you guys are trying to right that wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest kind of first step is this lawsuit. And so we are, we've sued the VA. And so our goal is that we can get not only compensation for Mr. Monk as a result of this, but that this can kind of send a message to the VA that something needs to change, and the VA needs to be taking, affirmative steps to fix this problem, not just for Mr. Monk, but for every Black veteran who has experienced this kind of discrimination. And it's also, our clinic is also kind of, doing things like this and making sure that the press is aware and that we're kind of, holding the VA accountable through public opinion and through, media outreach, because it's just, I think this is, from the veterans we've spoken to, it seems like it's an issue that a lot of people know is happening, but they don't have the kind of numbers to prove it. And now those numbers exist. And so we want to make sure that if Black veterans suspect this is happening, they have all of the information available to them to take steps to, maybe file their own lawsuits, maybe try to seek help for this in their own ways. And again, just hold the VA accountable.
And then, Claire, can you tell me what would you recommend the VA do? As if evidently you've known about this for many, many years, but they haven't done anything about it. What changes do they need to make in order to keep this from happening again?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big important first step is making sure that, as Adam mentioned, data collection efforts are disaggregated by race. So we are actually able to see what the differences in racial outcomes are going forward. And the VA has recently announced a new equity team, which is, intended to kind of fix some of these problems. And obviously, we hope that this equity team will accomplish this. But we obviously are aware that the VA has a poor history of, honoring those commitments to racial justice and equity. So we hope that this equity team actually does kind of take the necessary steps to ensure that Black veterans aren't experiencing this type of discrimination going forward.
So we've talked to people from the Black Veterans Project as well, and they talked about a lot of the disparities how benefits have been doled out between Black and white veterans. What would you say to those people out there who feel they've been discriminated against? What are their first steps? What would you recommend they do in order to try to get some of the benefits that have passed? And also, from what I understand, a lot of the benefits that were missed from veterans who earned them, a lot of these veterans have passed on. They've passed away. They've died. That being said, do they have beneficiaries who can receive these benefits if the person who actually served didn't get the benefits? And that's for Adam or Claire.
Yeah, so I can take this one. So I think that the first thing that a veteran should do is go through the channels provided by the VA. That is like the first step. If you feel like you've been wrongly denied, there are appeals processes in place that are, going to start the process on this. And that's the first step. And I know that a lot of veterans feel that, this system is rigged against them, is not going to take them into account. And that's what we're trying to address at a high level here. And so this lawsuit that we have right now is just for our individual client, Conley Monk. However, it could turn into a class action down the road where other veterans can get involved. And there are some steps that a veteran could take to get in touch with the clinic to join that potential class action if it comes. And I don't want to get anybody's hopes up of, joining a class or suing the VA by yourself, because that's not where the clinic is right now. But we do have an email address if you want to get in contact with us. I can give that out now, or we can give it to you later, whatever you think is the best way to go about that.
Go ahead, give that email out to us so we can get that out there.
Yeah, of course. So if a veteran is interested in just seeing what their options are or reaching out to the clinic, they can reach out to us at ftca.veterans@ylsclinics.org. So I'll give that one more time. It's ftca.veterans@ylsclinics.org. So if someone wants to reach out to the clinic, they can drop us a line at that email address, and someone from our team will get back to you.
And that's Foxtrot Tango Charlie Alpha. What was the last part?
Veterans, so VETERANS.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
Yep.
So could a beneficiary of a veteran get awarded any kind of missed claims or compensation?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that we're doing for a few people. We've heard people say, my father got denied for years. Also, our client, Conley Monk, his father, like we mentioned, was denied benefits for years, and Conley is Mr. Monk Sr.'s beneficiary. So we're also potentially seeing what options we have for beneficiaries. So, if it's your father, grandfather, someone like that, and you're the beneficiary for them, reach out to us, and we can see what we can do if this becomes a class action.
Claire Sullivan's a law student and intern at Yale University, and Adam Henderson, also a law student. Both work with the Veterans Legal Services Clinic at Yale University. Thanks for your time, and thanks for your work and effort to try to make things right for this country.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us on. Bye.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
We have in our chase bags, we have a care package of hygiene, we have shaving equipment, we have razors, and for the women we have the same personal hygiene items for them as well. And we want to say thank you for their service. This is Chase Bank. Thank you very much. People in the neighborhood, free haircuts, free service, free food. Look good. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Okay.
On behalf of Cliff Kelley, America's Heroes Group, we sincerely thank Chase Bank for coming where it matters to help homeless veterans have a hot meal today and a care package. We are sincerely grateful for this partnership. Yeah.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group. It's time with the roundtable and our sponsor, RHF Ninja Warrior Competition. Today is Saturday, April 1st, 2023. April is Sexual Assault, Minority Health, and Autism Awareness Month. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Cleveland, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have our partner back with us again, Darren Jeffrey. He's a founding board member of RHF and also the original course creator builder for the TV show American Ninja Warrior on NBC. And we have a panelist with us, Thomas E. Willis II, retired Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army National Guard, served over 22 years as Special Forces Green Beret, and also currently licensed real estate attorney. How you guys doing today?
Doing well, Sean. Thank you.
Our pleasure. So we're going to talk more about family life, RHF, the careers that you guys have had, doing the great things you've done. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Thomas. Tell us what made you, first of all, get involved with RHF. What brought you to RHF, and what is your mission with RHF?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Sean. Talking about how to help military families. It's one of my favorite things, so it's an honor to be here. Going back, gosh, it was, I think, 2013, 2014. I got a call from a friend with whom I'd gone to Special Forces selection, and he told me what he was thinking about starting, this organization named after his dear friend Rick Harima, and it was going to be a nonprofit designed to help military families. And he told me a little bit about what he thought the goal and the mission should be, and asked if I wanted to get involved. And I said, absolutely, I'd love to. And so we were off to the races.
Wow. So what's Bishop been like so far? If it's something that you really enjoy doing, tell us about your passion for this mission. And also, once again, give us a little bit of background about Rick Harriman. Tell us who he was. And then I know we have brought that up in the past before, but I want people to understand who he was and why he was such a special person for you guys to start this organization in his name.
Yeah, so full disclaimer, I never served with Rick. We were never in the same unit together, but I had friends that served with him, and he truly was a remarkable man. Everybody in the special operations community brings a lot of gifts. They're all blessed with a lot of gifts, but Rick had an unusual selflessness, and I think that's really what made him stand out from the crowd. It's just that he was always focused on helping other people and making them look good, and really the thought of himself always came last. And so he just had that leadership. His parents are heavily involved with the Rick Harriman Foundation, and his parents really blessed him. He just had such a great character, in addition to all the normal gifts you would expect with a special operations soldier. And so that spirit that Rick had, that selflessness, that humility, that desire to bless honors and put others first, that really has permeated, I think, the entire culture and the organization of RHF. My wife and I, we were excited to get involved with it because we had served down at Fort Bragg throughout my military career, through several deployments, and we had small kids, and especially when I was away training or on deployment, it's difficult for the wives, especially the spouses, especially if there are kids involved, to figure out how to stay connected, to find activities to do, just to stay sane sometimes, and to keep that mental health balance. So we saw there was a real need for that, and we in our family, we had felt it viscerally, where my wife had felt somewhat isolated from the military community when I was away. And when I was home, we would all get together, and we would have activities and meet other families, but it's just a little bit more difficult when the soldier gets deployed. So we saw the need. We knew it viscerally, and we wanted to help create a place where military families could come, pre-deployment, post-deployment, during a deployment. And so, that was the genesis of it, and a little bit about Rick there.
So, Thomas, tell us what made you join the military. What attracted you to the lifestyle? And then also tell us about your experience as a Green Beret. So I know that's a very difficult and very, very involved type of role in the military.
Well, I think that the main thing that really led me to join the military is I just love my country and felt a calling to serve. I think since I was a little boy, I had a sense in my heart that, if God had blessed me with any kind of strength at all, it should be used to, protect others. And, that got me into trouble sometimes. I remember once, I think I was in second or third grade, and I walked into the bathroom, and there was this bigger kid. He was a bully in our school, and he had this small kid in the corner, and he had him pushed up against the wall. And I said, "Hey, let him go. You can fight me." But then he just pushed me up against the wall. So I took the worst end of that one. But that desire just to kind of stand up to just to stand up to the evil in the world, and if you have a strength, you should use it to protect others. That just kind of seemed like it was part of me, and I just always was attracted to the military. The sense of adventure called me, the camaraderie with the other team members in your unit, that called me. And so I was actually working at a law firm in DC when I joined up, and I was in my mid-20s, and I was getting a little bit long in the tooth to start in the military. I think I was 27 or 28, and I just thought, gosh, I really don't want to have regrets. I had tried to join when I was younger in high school, but I had asthma, and they wouldn't take me at the time. But I grew out of that. So in my late 20s, I applied again, and they were willing to take me in. And And so I was blessed to find a path into the Green Berets. And I remember I went around the law firm and I was talking to some of the partners, and I said, this is something I really would want to do. I'm passionate about this. I think I would probably even pay somebody to let me do this. And they said, oh, you're going to pay for it. All right. And I still remember when I left the big firm in DC and I went down to Fort Benning, Georgia. We got our heads all shaved off, and we got our first. I still remember my first monthly paycheck. It was $992 as an E4 in the military, and I thought, well, this is great. But I honestly, it was one of the happiest times in my life. You know, we were doing what we felt like we were supposed to be doing, and you know, learning how to defend our country. And so yeah, I don't have any regrets. I'm still in the National Guard, so I'm going on 23 years and still going strong.
How was that transition for you, coming from full active duty to the reserve, or to the National Guard, to like a reserve component, basically?
Well, the National Guard has always more or less been my component, but I did serve 15 years on active duty, so I'm a little bit of a hybrid, if you will. But it's a challenge for National Guard soldiers because there's a lot of administrative transition that goes when you transition from civilian status to military status and back, and it's difficult for the active duty guys too. Every time they go from one set of orders to a new set of orders, that's a tumultuous time in any family, and it makes things difficult, and it's stressful. You have a very short window. Military families have a very short window in which to plan and execute a move to find a new place to live. At the same time, they're trying to learn a new stressful job. So it puts a lot of pressure on military families. And I think it impacts everything from, family stress, family unity, family finances. I think that military spouses have one of the lowest labor participation rates, even though typically they're well educated as a population, but they have a low labor force participation rate, and then that's of course due to the fact that every 2 or 3 years they're moving up on a new set of orders, and so that's why organizations like RHF, I feel, are really important to provide a space. A friendly space where some of that pressure in the balloon can be released before it builds up to too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Darren, tell us a little bit about these obstacle courses again, because I know sometimes people don't remember all the details about what RHF does and what Rick's Place is all about. But tell us about Rick's Place. Tell us about the obstacle courses and all the things a family can do at your obstacle courses and at RHF.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, it's when we first got the first chunk of property, I think we were at 21 acres, and so which 21 acres when it's covered with just thick woods, you can't really wrap your brain around how much land that is. And so some of the first decisions that we made as a board was to provide quality programming for families, just programs and activities that are free for military families that want to come out and spend some time at Rick's Place. And so literally some of the first programs that we did were work days where families literally showed up to clear brush just so that we could start unpackaging the property that we had at our disposal. And as the time went on, the visions from so many different people started to become realized, whereas, we could have a lake out here, or we could do tree houses, or, the Ninja Warrior course could come. We could build the Ninja Warrior course over here. The kitchen at the Harema house can be used for cooking classes, and we can do above ground garden beds in this, in another part of the property. And so the next thing you knew, we went from 21, I think, acres to 55 acres, which the neighboring properties were gifted to us. Once the community started finding out what we were doing, we had tons of support. And so, now we're sitting on a campus that is, the majority of the property is opened up and very well groomed. Picnic tables, nice trails are getting installed for big, long walks. tree houses are up. And so we really took it from a spot in the woods to just this open blank canvas of property where we can run just about any kind of program that makes sense. And so, and it's literally the simplest concept, but it takes a whole village to to prop that up and get it going. So, I think we're out of startup mode for the most part at Rick's Place. That's in Fayetteville, North Carolina, right outside of Fort Bragg. However, we are very excited about the prospect of getting some more spaces developed around other bases. So like, Tom said, when families are moving around, it's great that there's a Rick's Place, right by Fort Bragg, but if they have to move to Fort Hood, we're not there yet. So, part of this podcast series is to create awareness to America about what RHF is doing and the opportunity that America has to support us in our endeavor to scale out to additional locations so that families can connect the dots as they move around.
And how do people connect with RHF?
So right now it's, we have marketing throughout the base, throughout towns, social media, that sort of thing. But largely it's still word of mouth. It's surprising that, we're in a community that has so many, hundreds of thousands of families, and we're still just hearing constantly, oh, wow, new families will come out to the property and we'll hear over and over, oh, we didn't know you guys were here. So that's the question that we're still trying to ask ourselves, in fact.
So what's your website address so people can at least go there and get information about it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the Rick Harima Foundation, it's www.rhfnow.org, rhfnow.org.
And what's your most favorite thing to do at Rick's Place? What's the most fun?
Well, I'm a little jaded because I'm the Ninja Warrior guy, so I really like it when we get the course built and have it all set up and the electricity in the air with everybody, training and getting ready to compete. That's my favorite time of year. But that's not up year round. We only set it up for a few weeks as one of our mini programs. I don't know, Tom, what would be one of your favorite programs that we've done out there?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. I think, honestly, my favorite thing is just watching a family enjoy themselves, like the kids smiling and, maybe a dad chasing the kids around and just a family having a good time. Because all the research we did on the best way to help people and the board meetings and the planning and the work groups and just to see the smiles on the families' faces, that's the best part, I think.
I think that's really, really wonderful. The guys are actually doing all this work and actually improving the facility every year. It seems like it gets bigger and bigger and better every single year.
Yes.
That's really awesome.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So what would be your dream course? If you could make the course of all courses, a course to end all courses, what would that look like, Darren?
Oh boy. Well, it would be a step past what we've done with Ninja Warrior. I would take it to a different level. I'm a big fan of mashing together multiple concepts, and so I would love, and again, this is just dreaming, right? So this isn't even on the table. We're not even talking about this yet, but I would love to combine esports competitions with the physical element of the Ninja Warrior competition. I would love to have a family competition where the family members get to compete with some video games with one another, but then they get to step away from the console, be at Rick's Place, and go hit the obstacle course and kind of have a combination of scoring, if you will.
That sounds awesome.
Between the two. Yeah.
That sounds really awesome. That would be really cool. And now with the new technology, you got all these VR headsets and things like that. I could see that happening.
Absolutely. And we have the space out there for us to set up the consoles, and we do know some folks that run what's called the Military Gaming League, and that's a nonprofit as well. And so we're excited to know them, and it would be neat someday to be able to come up with an esports competition out at RHF.
Wow. Now, Thomas, tell us about your family. So you're married. Tell us about your kids. What do you do when you're trying to get quality time? How do you organize and plan and execute quality time with your family?
Yeah, well, that's something that, as a military family, you have to be intentional about that. You really can't leave that to an afterthought. You have to plan for it. So this weekend is a good example. My parents live down in the mountains, and so we left our hometown and just came down here for a day and a half just to get into the woods a little bit, get some hiking, get some family time, and do a little campfire, a little dinner. So on the military side, it's really like I said, something that you have to be intentional about, and so we try to make small investments on a regular basis. That's part of the research we did when we were first starting. The Rick Harriman Foundation was, how do families become more united, and what are the things that help folks that are going through stress. And so the research that we found that helped guide our Rick's Place now is that small investments of time, small investments consistently over a long period of time actually work better than large trips, for instance, or large expensive trips. So just taking a walk with your wife and kids, or daily bedtime stories together, those sort of small investments consistently over time, the studies show that that's the best way to build unity and connectivity and strength in a family unit, and really any team unit, but especially for the family. So that's what we try to do.
And that's one thing you kind of touched on, which I wanted to bring up, because this is a problem in this country, which is particularly what I've been hearing from people that recruit into the military, that they're finding that a lot of the people that want to join the military don't meet the basic qualifications. A lot of it having to do with their health. They're not healthy enough to join or meet the physical fitness standards to get into the military. Doing things like you're talking about, going for a walk, being active, doing an obstacle course, doing things you can do at Rick's Place. What do you think about that, and how do we get more on top of helping our younger people become eligible just to be able to join the military, particularly in the area of physical fitness?
Well, I think that folks sometimes look in the wrong places for answers. So that they'll say, well, what can the government do, or what can the school system do? And they may have a role to play, but really the buck stops with the parents, in my opinion. So if the physical fitness of your family is important, then it's something that requires attention. And so we encourage our kids to engage in sports and eat healthy. Not all the time, of course. That's always a battle. But you've got to put your foot down sometimes, and sometimes they need to get outside and go for a walk or get a jog. It's really a parental responsibility, and that's where it's got to start, and that's where broad change is going to come from. It's got to come from the bottom up.
Mm-hmm. And do your kids express interest in joining the military? If they've kind of taken after you in any kind of way to think about maybe going into a service?
Yeah, my oldest daughter is 17 right now, and so she's looking at possibly going into ROTC in college, or potentially joining after college. So we're going through that right now. My son, he's 5, or he's going on 6. He's determined he's going to be a soldier, so we'll see. But yeah, they're interested in it, and sometimes kids just want to be like dad, but whatever God's designed them to do, I'll support them. I definitely don't put any pressure on them to join the military, but if it's something that they want to do, of course I'll help them as much as I can.
No, Tom, tell me about one story you have as a Green Beret that really shaped maybe, or helped you learn something that was something that was really something that helped shape your life or changed your perspective on the world.
Well, I think, gosh, there's a lot of stories. I'll just tell you a leadership story. So I remember I was working on one mission, and we had our senior leaders, the leadership on the team, and and we were running around and executing the mission and busy and everything. And we had one of the support guys, and he had let his weight slip a little bit. And I think most people just, didn't think much about it, or maybe even looked down their nose a little bit. This guy's letting himself slip. And one of my friends on the leadership team took the time to go over and talk to him, and just say, hey, I noticed, you're not in as good a shape as you used to be. What's going on? And well, the guy had some things going on, and he had some personal challenges going on the home front, and so that episode just really humbled me, because my friend just taught me what good leadership looks like, because I was focused on, taking care of what I needed to get done, and, focused on getting this done or that done. But there's a guy right next to me, that was hurting, and I didn't even notice it, and my friend did. And so that really humbled me. That, helped shape me as a person, and I think it's helped shape our whole team, just to look out for your brother's back. And, leadership is about serving others. So that's a story I would share.
That's a good story. I like that story. And then also it kind of goes into the whole topic we're talking about today, which is really taking the time to just catch your breath. That officer, that soldier took his time out of his busy schedule to sit down and talk to a friend, basically, and say, hey, what's going on? Take a breath for a minute sometimes. What can you do to advise parents, particularly in the military, of how to make that happen, how to schedule or take a breath for a minute to start and trying to just catch up with your family, connect with your family, particularly your kids?
Yeah, that's a good question, Sean. I think probably this question isn't unique to the military family. I think, every family in America has this challenge these days, but really, again, it just comes back to being intentional. So, like for instance, if you heard about Rick's Place now and you're in the Fayetteville, North Carolina area, put it on the calendar, and maybe even a month out or a couple weeks out, but put it on the calendar and be intentional, and then go make a memory, with your family. And if it's, something more simple on a daily basis, hey, Friday night is family movie night. And I know everybody's got plans and there's things going on, but we're going to spend time as a family. And so you just gotta be intentional about it, and put your foot down sometimes and just say, hey, no, this is family time, and guard that time together.
Now, one thing I remember when I was a kid growing up, my mom kind of had this notion, and a lot of families have this notion, and I've read many places, that when a family eats dinner together, or at least has one meal together, but dinner particularly, that tends to be a very solid, grounded thing for a family to get into the habit of, is sitting down at dinner time and eating dinner together. Did your family, sometimes I knew you had to be deployed, maybe you weren't always at home, but did your family always have family dinner, or eat family dinner at least once a week, or on a daily basis maybe?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't say every day, but we try to make a habit of it. Definitely. You're right about that. The statistics are amazing. I think the kids are, I forget what they are exactly, Sean, but they're something along the lines of 75. If you have dinner with your kids a couple times a week, those kids are like 50% more likely to do well in school, 75% less likely to do drugs, to have sex before age 16. Don't quote me on the stats, but there are really strong stats on the impact that time. But it goes back to what we were talking about previously, and that's that when we were creating Rick's Place, we did some of the research on how to create the community and the bonds and the family and on a team, and it goes back to what we were saying, that those small little inputs consistently over time are what really builds the unity in the community. And so that it's the same for Rick's Place. It's the same, it's the same for the family. So absolutely, we try to do the meal as often as we can, and the story time as often as we can. And it's a healthy thing. Not always easy to do, as everybody knows.
So one more time, Darren, give us the information about how can people support Rick's Place, RHF Foundation. How can they get involved, support, lend their money, time, effort, volunteer? Where do they go, and what's the website?
Yeah, absolutely. But I do want to comment on an earlier topic, about how to create opportunity, for young people, and it's so amazing that the energy and the drive that a young person has, whether they have experience or not, they still have this drive, whether it's a spirit of adventure or the spirit of the spirit of life, or the spirit of being inquisitive. But the thing that's missing is the guidance piece. What I know is that every year another generation of kids graduate, and they're all looking for mentors. They're all looking for guidance. They're all looking for inspiration. And what we're talking about, up until that point, that guidance and inspiration largely can come from the family. And it's so true what Tom is saying, the small little things that are just repetitive over time. My father passed away 2 years ago, and I reminisce constantly about the things that we did together and how inspirational he was. And so I think RHF is a platform for creating opportunity, giving kids an opportunity to do something, or families to do something that would be very difficult for them to construct themselves. So anyways, I just wanted to talk about the value of mentorship. And as a parent, don't be frustrated. If you don't think you're doing enough, just be consistent and be kind. And trust me that the youngsters are going to reminisce on that, in the decades to come. So, if you want to get involved with RHF, which we want you involved with RHF, our website is www.rhfnow.org. We've got on the website, we've got places where you can click to donate to support the operation. We are a 501c3, just like America's Heroes Group. You can also support this podcast, which also directly helps support RHF. So there's a couple of different ways to financially support us. But if you're in the Fayetteville area, get on our website. We've got programs running constantly, which means we need volunteers constantly. We have an amazing volunteer.
Cut you off there, Darren. We just ran out of time.
Get it, buddy. Okay, great week.
No problem. We'll have you back again. So go and definitely support RHF at the RHF website. You can also see us other information on our website, americashg.org. Darren Jeffrey, Thomas E. Willis, thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sean.
Have fun.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
We have in our chase bags, we have a care package of hygiene, we have shaving equipment, we have razors, and for the women we have the same personal hygiene items for them as well. And we want to say thank you for their service. This is Chase Bank. Thank you very much. People in the neighborhood, free haircuts, service, and food. Look good. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you. Okay.
On behalf of Cliff Kelley, America's Heroes Group, we sincerely thank Chase Bank for coming where it matters to help homeless veterans have a hot meal today and a care package. We are sincerely grateful for this partnership. Yes.
Welcome to America's Heroes Group. Hear your voice where we connect the disconnected intentionally.
Is Cliff Kelley, the governor of talk radio, the icon of radio throughout the world.
Chauncey Spencer II and I, again, share a special relationship. His late great father, Tuskegee Airman Chauncey E. Spencer, took me as a child on my first airplane ride.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is something that people need to see. Often we don't, do the things to show how great our people are It changes the paradigm of how people think about us, about the collective consciousness of what it means to be us.
And we've been having great conversations about trying to get more African Americans into aviation. And we got a bill that we're trying to get passed that would allow the Pell Grant to be used to help finance aviation education.
This is where I started with this entire conversation by saying, if it were not for America's Heroes Group, I would have given up. So I want to get all my accolades out the way on behalf of America's Heroes Group. Ms. Glenda, thank you. Thank you for encouraging me to press on. I would encourage you all to support this organization. One thing for sure, America's Hero Group is out there. Ms. Glenda will take the time. Ms. Glenda Smith will take the time to listen to you and to steer you in the direction that you need to go.
Thank you for watching another episode of America's Heroes Group, where we provide education about resources and information for our veterans, military, and their family.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group. This time our roundtable, we are globally connected, Military Family Matters, with our partner and family caregiver, Keisha L. Jackson. Today is Saturday, April 1st, 2023. April is Sexual Assault, Minority Health, and Autism Awareness Month. Our host is Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producers, Ivan Ortega, Scouts Honor Productions. And Keisha is back with us again. She's a U.S. Air Force veteran and a family caregiver. How you doing, Keisha?
Hi, Sean. I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good. And you brought us a great person today. That is retired General Larry O. Spencer. He's a retired four-star general, served over 40 years in the Air Force. General Spencer is the president of the Armed Forces Benefit Association, the AFBA, chair and president of the Five Star Insurance Company, and author of the book Dark Horse. How you doing?
I am doing great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, sir. So tell us, we want to talk about get a little bit of information about this book you wrote, Dark Horse. Tell us about this book, and also what is the lesson and the message of the story?
Sure. Well, thanks for asking. Yeah, I wrote Dark Horse for several reasons. One is, as you can imagine, since there's only 9 African-American 4-stars in the Air Force since the Air Force's history or inception in 1947, a lot of folks come up to me and ask me, well, how do you make 4-stars? Well, that's actually the wrong question. And, without dragging you into, a lot of military jargon, if you're a captain, you should be worried about making major, not worried about making general. But implicit in that question was the assumption that I had some sort of privilege, some sort of, one of my parents was a general, I went to the Air Force Academy, there was something that propelled me to that rank, absent sort of just really hard work. And so I wrote the book because I wanted folks to understand that, I came up the same way they did. I grew up in the same neighborhoods they did. I had the same challenges and difficulties they did. But thankfully, I was able to keep myself focused on my goal and ultimately reach that goal, at least my military goal. The other part of it was I wanted to leave some life lessons that I thought might help people. And so there are several lessons in the book. I won't cover them all, but many of them go through sort of what I learned in life and hopefully will help others to achieve their goals as well if they stay focused on what it is they want to accomplish.
And give us a little snapshot, a little tidbit of what the book is about, the plot or the. Sure. It
starts off. So I was born and raised in Southeast Washington D.C., inner city neighborhood, and as I tell folks, segregation had long been overturned by the time I was born, but it was practically segregated because, I lived in a black neighborhood, went to a black church, went to a black school. And what was interesting for me was that, I didn't see a lot of role models in my neighborhood, didn't have a lot of mentors. But when I traveled outside the neighborhood, when we went to a doctor, doctor was not black. We went to, the stores, or my father went to buy a car. So I had to, as a kid, my favorite superhero was Superman, and even Superman was not black, so or Santa Claus. So I wrestle with all of that, with self-esteem and self-worth, trying to understand that those positive images I saw didn't look like me, and so it starts out with my initial upbringing in D.C., which didn't have very good schools. As I mentioned, sort of a tough neighborhood. A lot of fights. Fortunately, then the guns weren't as prevalent as they are now. So it was mostly about getting into fights and getting into trouble and stuff like that. Typical inner city neighborhood activities. And then it progresses to when I actually joined the Air Force, enlisted. Right out of a little bit out of high school, I was actually playing semi-pro football in the D.C. League at the time, and then that led to me joining the Air Force. And then the book progresses through, and I'll tell you a story here in a second, but I did get to spend the summers on my grandfather's farm, which was very interesting. And then it goes through sort of my joining the Air Force, enlisted, some of the issues I had to go through, even in the Air Force, dealing with issues, the N-word, things like that, and getting my degree, becoming an officer, and then progressing my way up through the ranks, and all the challenges and situations my wife and I found ourselves in as we tried to traverse the military structure. But as an example, a lot of folks ask me what was the most important life lesson I ever learned, and I'll tell you one about on my grandfather's farm, which was located in the southwest Virginia, about 20 miles south of Appomattox, Virginia. Mm-hmm. And although I was a city kid, I got to spend the summers on his farm. He grew tobacco. And generally, I had a cousin that would spend the summers with me. And so we kind of hang out, work tobacco, and it was literally out in the middle of nowhere. And one summer, though, in particular, when I visited, my cousin wasn't there yet. He was visiting his mother in Philadelphia. And so our normal routine was we would get up every morning. I had chores to do, feeding the hogs, that sort of thing. And then we would get on his tractor. He had a platform tractor, and we would ride out to one of the many tobacco fields and work until it essentially got too hot. Well, this particular morning I got up, and rather than get on the tractor, my grandfather hitched up this big horse that he had. And behind the horse was a platform, and just a flat, almost like just a flat platform, no wheels on it. And so on that platform, he put a plow, and I sat on the platform with the plow, and he and the horse pulled us out to one of the many empty fields that he had. And so when we got there, he hitched the plow to the horse and started plowing these perfect roads up and down. And again, I'm 11 years old from D.C. That was all new to me. I was transfixed on this thing, watching he and the horse sort of in perfect rhythm, going up and back and forth up and down the roads. Just unbelievable. Now, by the way, again, as I mentioned, I was from D.C. My grandfather kind of viewed me as this sort of lazy kid, didn't know anything about work. And he and I had been talking a little bit because we were both introverts, but it was just he and I until my cousin arrived. And so he was teaching me these pearls of wisdom, as an example. He thought I needed to know the difference between a mule and a donkey. I have no idea why he thought that. I've never used that information in my life, but I do know the difference. He also told me that even a blind rooster finds a kernel of corn every once in a while. Now, I have no idea what that means, but those are the pearls of wisdom that he was giving me. So when he got about halfway through his plowing, he stopped and went in the woods for a potty break. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, he's trying to mentor me. He's trying to help me. He thinks I'm lazy, essentially not good for much. So I said, okay, I'm going to get up and plow the roads while he's in the woods, so he won't have to do that. That's less work he'll have to do when he returns. Now, granted, I've never plowed before, had no idea what I was doing. And so I got up, and the plow was about the same size I was. And I don't know if you've ever seen one. It's a huge piece of equipment, mostly metal. And so I got this thing upright. I put the reins behind my back. I knew the command to make the horse go forward, and so I gave the command. So the horse starts walking. The problem is the horse is cutting diagonally across my grandfather's perfectly plowed road.
No.
Because I didn't know how to operate the plow. I didn't know how to steer the horse. I didn't know any of that. Now, let me pause for a second because I'm not advocating this. This is 2023. But just to be clear, this was the mid-'60s. In the 60s, mid to late 60s, you could whip your kid. And in fact...
And the 80s, too.
Right, exactly. But not only could you whip your kids, but, one, we were on the farm and nobody would know anyway. But if anyone did, they would encourage it. So, that was the way kids were disciplined then. And the disciplinary tool of choice was called a switch. Now, you're in Chicago. You probably don't know anything about that. But
I know about switches.
All right,
and belts and coat hangers and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, branch off of a tree.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking to myself, my grandfather had never whipped me before. So I'm thinking, we're out in the middle of nowhere, switches on trees all over the place. So that's what's going through my mind as I'm really destroying his work. And so I'm almost all the way across the field now, coming up out of the field. If we had walked that far with the horse. And my grandfather charges out of the woods and he says, "Larry, what are you doing?" And instinctively, if you can picture this in your mind, I'm 10, 11 years old, walking behind this plow, don't know what I'm doing. I knew the command to make the horse go forward, did not know the command to make the horse stop. And so I turned to try to look at my grandfather. I had my hands sort of out, trying to balance myself from falling down because I'm literally walking sideways now. And just out of instinct, I just kind of yelled to myself, "Whoa, whoa." Of course, that was the command to make the horse stop. Now, I didn't know that at the time. So now the horse is stopped. I'm standing there. I'm looking at these switches, and my grandfather's charging toward me. And when he got to me, he said something that wasn't very articulate or probably not grammatically correct, but he said something to me that has guided my life ever since, including now. And what he said to me was, "It's okay to try and fail, but it's not okay not to try." And what he essentially was saying to me was, "Hey, I'm proud of you for trying. The fact that you failed at it is okay, because in life, you're going to fail. And you're going to see things that look hard, but go try anyway. And don't worry about it if you fail. If you fail, that's okay. Get up and get back out there." I tell a lot of folks, and I can't tease you about the Chicago Bears, by the way, because I'm a Washington Commanders fan, so we're both in about the same boat.
Used to be a Commanders fan. I was born and raised in D.C. Used to be a Commanders fan, but now, I'm totally a Bears fan now.
All right. So, but I tell folks now, you can't score a touchdown sitting on the bench. And so you've got to get out there in the game, got to give it everything you've got. And by the way, speaking of the bench, there's always haters sitting on the bench telling you what you can and cannot do. I can't tell you the number of times I went through that in my life, people telling me what I couldn't do. You don't have this, you don't have that, you were from this neighborhood. I every time that happened to me, and trust me, it happened all the way through my career, and it still happens. Every time someone told me that, I thought about what my grandfather said, and I jump in there anyway. And I'm not worried about failure because I learned from failures. But the important thing is I get back in the game and try to score a touchdown. So that there are tons of stories like that in the book to kind of help people understand that, there's no mystery to this. It is hard work. It's perseverance. In my case, it was also faith, and it was at the end of the day, you never, ever give up.
Your story reminds me of what I read in one of Colin Powell's books. He mentioned when he became a general for the first time, that he basically was asking or looking to promote a bunch of officers to another rank. I can't remember what ranks they were moving through, but they brought him a list, and the list had all white men on it.
Correct.
So he said, "Well, bring me another list. But this time I want you to open it up and look and see all the people that really are qualified to be on this list." And and he was talking about in the book that section was about affirmative action. But unlike what most people think about affirmative action, they think that, oh, you're taking an opportunity away from somebody else that's qualified. What Colin Powell did, we actually expanded the list and had more people looked at. So instead of having a list of 10 people, for example, it was a list of maybe 12 or 15 people. But more people were being looked at for the opportunity. And he picked the best people off that list. And it turned out that some of those people were black, some of those people were white, some of those people were female. But the reality is that by opening up the scope or the view, he was able to find more talent and promote the talent that deserved to be promoted. And that kind of reminds me of what you've been talking about, is the fact that we are so afraid to fail and so afraid to make mistakes that oftentimes we don't take the chances and do the things that we need to be doing. What would you say to people, young folks today? What would you advise them to do as far as trying to improve themselves, as far as trying to find out, how to test their mettle to make sure that they are prepared for the challenges of life?
No, absolutely. First of all, I knew General Powell very well. In fact, where I consider him a mentor of mine. So let me fill in just for a second part of your story. So it was a true story. The Secretary of the Army is the one who got the one-star general list, and there were no people of color or women on the list. And I think it's for the first and only time sent the list back and essentially said, look, I'm not going to tell you to go pick people of color, but I'm going to tell you I don't believe this. And they reconvened the board. And when the new list came up, it was a different board of people. It did have folks of color on the list. One of those folks of color on that list, that brand new one-star list, was Colin Powell. And I often wonder what may have happened to him had that not happened.
Wow.
Right. But to answer your question directly, yeah, I encourage young folks, to first of all, set some goals and don't worry about, I meet a lot of folks who say, well, I don't know what I want to be. Well, I could probably say the same thing today, but that's okay. Step out into the water and start swimming. And don't worry about what direction you're going to end up in. Get out there and start swimming. And I try to encourage folks to, first of all, get as much education as you can. And if you can't, like I did, I didn't. My parents didn't have the money to send me to college. So when I went into the Air Force, I enlisted. I went to night school. I went to school on the weekends, and I got my degree, and then I became an officer. So I'm not saying it's easy, but get in the pool and start swimming, and prepare yourself. One of the things that I have always tried to do, I'm not sure if I was successful or not, but I always try to prepare myself to walk in the door when it's open. A lot of folks have a door open and they say, well, I can't do that, or I'm not prepared for that. Every time that happened, I thought about what my grandfather said, and I went through the door with enough confidence to know that I may not have all the skills or all the education they say you need for this job, but I'm going to figure it out. I learned how to ask the right questions. I learned how to read people, so I knew who was telling me the truth and who wasn't. If I needed additional education, I went to get it. If I needed to study at home or at night, I did it. But I encourage young people to get out there and start swimming. Get out there and make something happen.
Now I'm going to pivot us a little bit because you're a general and because you have so much experience and history with the military, 40 years of experience. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing the military today?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of challenges today. One is recruiting is very tough. In fact, the Army is going to miss its recruiting goal, or they project they will miss their recruiting goal in 2023, I think somewhere around 40,000.
Wow.
So one of the real challenges today is a lot of folks don't want to join the military. A lot of that, and there's a lot of reasons for that. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but less than 25% of Americans 18 to 24 years old are even eligible to join the military anymore. A lot of that's based on physical fitness, based on a criminal background, based on prior drug use, etc. So there's so few people in the country now that are even eligible to join. And then on top of that, there's all kinds of issues going around, some political. You got folks walking around talking about the quote-unquote woke military. Be honest with you, I don't even know what that means. But I don't think people who are saying it know what it means either. But there's a lot of things swirling around that have caused, including the small eligibility pool. But along with, there's just not that many folks who want to join. When I first enlisted in the Air Force, was the tail end of Vietnam. But even you look back World War II on forward to Vietnam, everyone knew someone in the military. You had a mother, father, aunt, uncle, cousin, brother, sister in the military. That's completely gone now. You stop someone on the street of our country and ask them, do they know anybody in the military? They will tell you no. Less and less folks in Congress have any military experience, or in our government, or folks running for president anymore have never served in the military. So it is a real challenge that I know the military leaderships are grappling with today.
Thanks for your time and all the great stories. I really look forward to reading your book, Dark Horse. That is retired General Larry O. Spencer, 4-star general, served 40 years in the Air Force. Keisha L. Jackson, U.S. Air Force veteran and family caregiver. Thanks, Keisha, for bringing us this great person.
Yes, Sean, thank you. Thank you, General Spencer.
And thank you both for your service.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back. Welcome back to America's Heroes Group. This time our roundtable community outreach. Chicago veterans, you decide. Saturday, April 1st, 2023. April is Sexual Assault, Minority Health, and Autism Awareness Month. Our host is Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host, Army National Guard veteran. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith. Our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have another familiar voice and familiar face on the line with us today. That is Rochelle Crump. She is a U.S. Army veteran and founder and president of the National Women's Veterans United. And Jim Balser. He's a highly decorated U.S. Marine Corps Vietnam vet, former 11th Ward Alderman, and director of City of Chicago Veterans Affairs Office. And we're going to talk about the next mayor's qualifications for addressing issues and concerns of the state of Chicago veteran community. What is that going to be all about? How you doing, Rochelle?
I'm doing fine, Sean. How are you? And thank you so much for having me again. I appreciate it.
Doing pretty good. And Jim, how you doing?
Sean, I couldn't be better. I'm retired and I'm happy. I'm sitting here with my wife and my grandchildren. So I did my time in politics and in the military, but I'm honored to be on your show along with Rochelle, who is a great friend and the best woman's advocate for veterans in the state of Illinois and probably the country.
Outstanding. We also have a guest on the line with us today, too, as well. Mr. Vallis, Paul Vallis, is called in to say a couple of words. How you doing, Mr. Vallis?
I'm great. And it's so nice to hear from Jim. Jim, congratulations on all you have done for vets. As a father of two veterans and as a son of a veteran and as a brother of a veteran and being a veteran myself, 13 years in the Army National Guard, I just appreciate all that the veterans have done for us. And I think, and Jim, of course, when you were in the city council, you really led the way. There's really been a vacuum since your departure, and I want to congratulate Cliff Kelley, the America's Heroes Group show, for really providing a platform that has given military veterans and their families an opportunity to be heard, to raise their issues, and to really put pressure on our government to really provide the type of response and support that our veterans truly deserve. My older boy, of course, was a combat veteran in Afghanistan. He's now a Chicago firefighter in Englewood, and he works with veteran groups almost tirelessly, particularly with those returning veterans and those veterans who have suffered from post-traumatic stress. And he and Terry Hilliard, the former Vietnam veteran, police superintendent twice in Chicago, they and a group of combat vets have been extremely active in helping other veterans. So I just want to congratulate you, and I want to congratulate Cliff, of course, a Vietnam veteran himself and a longtime friend, for really doing heroic work here, because it's good that the veterans have a platform. Unfortunately, they're too often ignored and denied the basic benefits that they're entitled to.
I agree with that. Good words from a good man. Appreciate your time, and I should appreciate you for calling in, Mr. Vallis.
I will tell you. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I was just going to say it's my pleasure. I look forward to, if I'm fortunate enough to get elected mayor, to come on the show whenever invited. And obviously, I think we finally have to fill that position in the Office of Veterans Affairs. I mean, the city can be playing, such a much more larger, comprehensive role in providing the support that our veterans need. And at the end of the day, obviously, that will be my priority, coming from a family of 5 veterans. So, again, I appreciate the invitation, and it's great to hear Jim, and God bless all of you.
God bless you.
I will.
And this, in all fairness, we did reach out to Gordon Brandon Johnson's campaign as well, but did not connect with him. So everybody knows about that. So we want to talk about what is upcoming in this election. What are some of the things we are looking for leadership in this country, particularly around the veteran community? We want to know, Rochelle, tell us, what are you looking for in a candidate, and also what is important to you that's going to make you vote for that person?
Well, thank you so much, Sean, because the first thing I want to say is that we don't want anyone to forget that women serve too. That would be the top thing that I am pushing. You know, a lot of times we talk about veterans and post-traumatic stress disorder, Vietnam. Women veterans served in Vietnam also. And so they have issues pertaining to that. They were nurses, and they did a heck of a lot of things, even when they came home, to continue serving. So that would be the first thing, is not to forget women. So when you say thank you to men, you have to say thank you to women also, because there is no difference between the sacrifices that they made from one day to another while they were in Vietnam and when they came home. So, you know, when we talk about the veterans and the post-traumatic stress disorder and all of those illnesses that were caused as a result of their service, we have to remember that, you know, certain things are triggers, and they also, you know, wind up being homeless in so many ways. And so, you know, this thing with homelessness, we've got to do something about it. You know, it's almost like when we start talking about the crime. When we talk about the crime, we should also be talking about homelessness. When we talk about the crime, we should also be talking about veterans. So we should never forget that those men and women who serve this nation deserve so much more. They don't deserve to have to go to shelters and be in the process and in a system that basically is also connected to those who have made bad choices in their life. Mm-hmm. You know, we forgive those people when they do those things, but, you know, just think of you going into combat and you coming home and you get off track and your PTSD takes you, you know, a long way from being, you know, what you could be doing in terms of working and serving your country some more, but you wind up homeless and you wind up on the streets, you know. We should not have to put them in a shelter and then they're marching them around like they've done something wrong in the nation other than what they've done. So that would be the two things that I am most concerned about, and especially, and I have to say it again, women serve this country too. They serve land, air, and sea. And so we should never, ever forget that. And it just perturbs me when I don't hear, you know, the sentiments of them talking about women. Yes, men are, you know, the dominant males that basically serve the country, but you know what? Women did a heck of a lot of things that men didn't do. And so they saw a lot just like they did, you know. And I want to say that Jim's mother is actually a veteran also, you know, and that makes it even more unique and more, you know, for him to be able to never forget that women are veterans. And he's done a great job at that. I have to give him kudos for that. He's always, you know, been beside me, and I've been beside him, you know, working things for veterans and making sure that veterans were never forgotten. And we did some mighty things when we were with the Department of Veterans Affairs with the city.
And you also have this great museum behind you, which is the headquarters of National Women's Veterans United. Tell us about where's your address, and tell us about your museum you have there.
Yeah, our address is 8620 South Pulaski Road in the lower level. And, you know, this is a catch-all place. You know, it's a place where women can come and they can feel like they're at home, because that's how we treat them. We treat each other as sisters. We treat each other with dignity and respect, and we know all of the things that they have done, and so we lift each other up. And the biggest thing here is we write for ourselves, and we will not be left out of history, because a lot of times, you know, we are ignored, we are forgotten, and certainly, you know, we have a long way to go before we could even be, you know, the numbers that would make us even significant in history. You know, 15%, 12%, you know, that's not a lot. And so it's male dominated with your American Legions, DAV, VFW, all of those organizations that, you know, they mean well, but a lot of times they don't do well.
So, Jim, tell me, what are you looking in for a candidate for this election? And also, what are some of the issues that are important to you?
Thank you. Rochelle, thanks for mentioning my mother. It brings tears to my eyes, but you never, ever have forgotten about her. And my mother served in World War II. I had two brothers that served during Vietnam. My grandfather served in World War I and World War II. And, of course, I served in the Marine Corps in Vietnam, which I'm very proud. Number one, I'd like to say thanks to Paul. He helped bring back the Memorial Day Parade, which included the ROTC. I think it was 1998 or 1999. We brought it back to downtown Chicago. And one of the biggest things to me, Sean, we got to commend Alderman Villegas for putting $250,000 into the city budget to hire a director of Veterans Affairs. Now, from what I understand, they're just starting to do that now. That spot has been vacant for, I think, 4 years or longer.
Wow.
And we look at the issue. It's a shame. And Rochelle and I, we did a million things together going back to 1989. I was there for 7 years, and then I was appointed alderman in 97. But if you look at the issues, you have homelessness. Remember Jim Prophet, Rochelle? 1/3 of the homeless population is veterans, women veterans. You're talking about domestic violence, housing. Rochelle emphasizes those issues. No one has done a better job. Myself, PTSD, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I left the city council. I was, forced out because of vertigo and PTSD, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I have gone to counseling for the last 8 years, and I will continue doing that. And what if someone calls up the city? From what I understand now, you call up a number, it's disconnected. I mean, I don't believe what's going on with this stuff, and that's why we need leadership in there like Paul will provide as mayor of the city of Chicago. Housing. I mean, come on. We need housing for the veterans. We need help. And if you want to talk about a voting population, I think 60,000, there's 60,000 veterans in Chicago. Now, if you start including their families, their friends, their relatives, the numbers jump. What about the people that are serving in the military? And look at city workers. When I was an alderman, we worked to help National Guardsmen and reservists National Guardsmen and reservists and police, fire, and paramedic and city employees who were called up to active duty. They need help. Where do they go? I mean, if there's no one there telling them where to go and what to do, you have this void, this problem. That is why we've got to do something for it. And that's why I will tell you right now, I voted for Paul Vallis. And I will, I hope he wins. We've got to do something. We have to do something.
Definitely.
And let me say one more thing about this. Paul Vallis stood with us at Soldier Field, and I think it was 6 months ago, when they were looking at changing the name or corporate sponsorship. And he was with us before he even announced. I mean, that's an important thing, and people forget that Soldier Field was changed, had the name Soldier Field because of the Gold Star mothers of World War I, who lost their sons and daughters in the military. So those are the reasons that are the most important to me. And believe me, I will be out there again if we don't get the support we need. And I know Rochelle will be right there with me.
Now, it's interesting because you brought up like a lot of the things that Paul Vallis has done in Chicago. Now, he has a track record outside of Chicago, in New Orleans and other places, where he has not been as effective, and that's been criticized a lot in the media across the country and so on. What do you say about that, Jim? How can you speak to that, or how does that affect your opinion about his leadership?
Well, it doesn't affect, when they say he's not, are they talking about veterans? Are they talking about the ROTC?
Right.
Are they talking about the military? Tell me what it is. If they're talking about running the school systems, I didn't follow him into those states, so I don't know. But again, as far as I'm concerned, with the military, the veterans, the ROTC, he has done a magnificent job.
Okay. And Rochelle, so tell me, in your view, where are you leaning? Since Jim has kind of mentioned who he's voting for, who are you voting for, and then some of the reasons?
The biggest thing is this. People have to remember a lot of veterans, such as myself, are not red or not blue. We are red, white, and blue.
Right.
And we only gravitate to those who basically can talk about veteran issues, and they can put that on the line, because all other things, yes, they matter. Those things matter. Crime is up, it affects veterans in a lot of ways, because veterans have been killed on these streets coming back from, Afghanistan and from Iraq, and have died in the street when they came home to Chicago. So those are important issues too. But we want to make sure that the people who come to those offices understand that they have a duty to do. And they need to stand up and do those duties for those who stood up for them, put their lives on the line for this country, for this nation, for this city, and the community. So we want to make sure that we have people like Paul Vallis, who understands exactly how to run a military, or understand how veterans can help in the communities and be a presence. No one has really reached out, in that avenue to say that veterans can do more things in the community that we do anyway, by mentoring youth in the ROTC, mentoring them in the Boy Scouts and things of those natures, to make sure that they understand about military and how that affects their lives as well as their parents and the school systems and everything around that. We have to remember that military veterans are a gem to the nation. We are. And you're a veteran yourself, and we don't want to leave you outshine. Thank you for your service also,
This is the thing that I'm concerned about, though. This is the thing that when we talked about this in the earlier segment, that a lot of the kids here in Chicago, even my recruiter told me this when I joined the military, and I joined the National Guard 20 years ago. He said that he had a hard time trying to find young men and women who could even make the qualifications to join the military, because they're not even being prepared. They're coming out of school, high school, barely knowing how to read, barely knowing the basic skills to pass the ASVAB, which is the test to get into the military. And now we're hearing about the fact that kids aren't even in shape. Their health is to the point where they can't even qualify to join the military to meet the physical requirements. So they can't meet the educational or the physical requirements. So we have a lot of work to do to improve, and that reflects the violence. That reflects all the things that we're seeing in our streets. Because if the kids are not being educated and are not being raised in a healthy manner, that it's going to breed, it's going to give you all of the crime and all of the problems that we have in the city, across the city.
Now let's look at the things here.
No, Jim, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
Let me tell you something. Just one of the things I encountered in the city council, I had a young Marine call me up. He had served in the Marine Corps, was in Afghanistan. He took the police test, and he failed because they said he wasn't orally qualified. I couldn't believe that. I called them because I knew where to go and what to do. I called it. Number one, who had the contract? I called them in front of the, I believe it was the Police and Fire Committee. And I asked them, I said, the questions you ask someone that was in the military, if they killed people and they've seen combat, yes, this. And then I said, do you ever ask them if they did anything good? Save a life, drive a truck? He looked at me dumbfounded. But that's the problems that are little things that have to be confronted, and that's why we need someone sitting in the mayor's chair to guide the council and to have help. And like I said, with Alderman Villegas, thank God he put $250,000 in the budget, and not to have someone who sits up in an office and they don't want to do anything.
No, we did reach out and extend the invitation to also Brandon Johnson. We wanted Brandon Johnson to give us a call as well. We weren't able to connect with him, but if he's out there, if you're listening, if you have anybody in your team listening, give us a call. Call us up at WVON. Our number is...
Right. I don't want to stray away from that education piece, Sean. I want to go back to it because, you know what? Also, we need to look at the whole process and what's going wrong with the system. Let's look at how the school system, just like you said, are not making headway with a lot of kids. So when the kids are not connecting to school, we have to do something different. We need to bring back those vocational type programs in the schools so that kids don't have to go to prison to learn how to do certain things.
There you go.
That would be the first thing.
You hit that right on the head.
Oh, absolutely. And I've been saying that over and over for years, but it goes on deaf ears because when people hear things, that means they have to do something about it. So they don't want to have to hear it. You know what I'm saying?
And there's a lot of people have made that known. A lot of people have mentioned that. They're about bringing back vocational schools. I've talked to, and these are mostly veterans, by the way. A lot of veterans have made this known.
Absolutely. And so, that's the first thing we need to do. I worked for DCFS, and I'll tell you, the families that they broke up, the system itself, that system has been broken a long time because, again, you have this rotation of directors and you have this rotation of everybody wants to start something new instead of working with what's working and adding on to that to make sure that the social workers can do the best that they can do with the families and things like that. So you've got all of that. All those things are going to fall into City Hall, and they're going to fall into the laps of Paul Vallis, and he needs good people on his side that know those ropes about the DCFS and all of those other things. Yes, It's a state issue too, but we all need to take responsibility for these children that are on the street. Stop being scared of them, start talking to them and mentoring them. Mm-hmm. We need to do this. We don't have to. They don't have to be our children in order to do that.
And once
we
again,
have to do that. We have to tell them our stories. When we tell them our stories, then they can get a little sense of, of knowledge about the country itself, because the veterans have seen the country.
Brandon Johnson, make sure you give us a call, 312-705-5855. Love to hear your voice. Love to hear your opinions and thoughts. All fairness and all balance, just to be because we had Paul Vallis called in, was something we planned, but he called into our show, so we want to be balanced and as fair as possible.
Yes, because we are a 501c3, and so our issues is we want the best person in place who would represent veterans, the Metropolitan Chicagoland veterans, who would appoint someone in that position that knows what the hell they're doing to address these issues and concerns that's related to our military population, because men and women and their children that are veterans do not deserve to be on the street. They do not deserve to be treated like secondhand citizens. I have a problem with that. If we can open up a damn school for immigrants, we can get veterans off the street. We can place them someplace decent and clean. We need leadership.
And a plan.
Absolutely, and the people who can do those plans need to be at the table and stop ignoring those who have the knowledge in order to get the work done.
Mm-hmm.
So I can promise you, I promise you, America's Heroes Group, we are mobile. And when I say mobile, we just came from D.C. We joined our partner there who sponsored us to come there, American Institute of Public Dental Health, because veterans, some of them across this country don't even have dental care to go to the dentist. So we went to Washington to let the elected officials know that taxpayers, us, are in your face. And we will no longer wait 10 more years for veterans to be able to go to the dentist, to get their teeth, to get serviced by a dentist, or to get dentures so they can chew food. So we will be at City Hall, and we will be wherever it's needed. We're no longer waiting. Plan of action is action now.
And and they should stop saying comprehensive care, because comprehensive care is oral and physical
and
medical conditions. Right. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you don't have comprehensive care. And it's misleading in so many ways, because they want veterans to come to the VA hospital, and then when they go there, a lot of them are not qualified, and then you get the big long story for this. We need to stop that. We really do. And they need help also. And we're making a difference. Women are really making a difference in that. We're sitting on some of those committees, and we're not sugarcoating anything.
Now, Jim, so we talked about on our show earlier also about the fact that a lot of minority veterans and women veterans were denied benefits coming out of the military. They were disproportionately denied the things that they were entitled to, as far as getting even an honorable discharge. Sometimes people were just not given a discharge that was less than honorable because of some discrimination or something that happened to them in the military. A person might have been sexually assaulted. A woman might have been sexually assaulted, suffered from MST. But then now they get a dishonorable discharge because they made a complaint.
I will tell you, as I tell everybody, and Rochelle has known me for a long time, you got to speak up. You have to tell them just what the hell is going on. You can't sit down. You can't take it. I've been fighting the system now for 50-some years, and I know what it takes. I don't care who you are. You got to. And another thing is, we got to stick together. We have to stick together. Who was it, Caesar, that said divide and conquer? Mm-hmm. This group is here. One of the first things I did when I became director of veterans, I found out I'd like to refer them as the 5 families, the American Legion, the VFW. Okay, you had them. But then I had to learn there were groups out there like the Montfort Point Marines, I think it was a 760-something tank battalion, the Golden 13. I found out all these different Hispanic groups, Asian groups, and we brought them under one umbrella. And one of the things, Rochelle, remember when we used to give the reception for Veterans Day up at the mayor's office?
Absolutely, yes.
One of the first things I said, who is the biggest group up here? And I forgot what group they said. I said, my goal was to put the numbers up there. And when I left, we filled it from City Hall all the way to the county building. So I tell everybody, we got to stick together, and we got to stick up for each other.
Absolutely. And we want to make sure that we acknowledge, we need to acknowledge Harold Washington, Mayor Harold Washington, because he's the one that created that whole atmosphere for veterans. He was a veteran himself. Absolutely.
Right.
And in fact, he died the day after the veterans reception.
Wow.
Yeah,
and it was
forget about all that stuff.
I created this show for the very same reason that you and Rochelle are talking about. Back in 2015, we incorporated the paperwork. We aired our first show April 2016 to give a platform so military, family members, veterans, armed forces could have a voice to voice their opinion. So that's what this platform is all about.
And believe me, Rochelle and I just aired our opinions.
And thank you, because that's why we're here. See, we don't apologize, and we break China and we crush eggshells. We're not going to apologize because we have to speak the truth to who we pay taxes. We pay taxes
believe me,
So they need to do what we say. They need to do what we say, not what their special interests and their backdoor talks. They need to do what we say, and they are. Yes, sir.
Here's what I'll tell you this, because I know we're getting close to the end.
Yeah.
But let me say this. I asked my Vietnam veterans out there on Tuesday, I think it was, or Wednesday. I said, how many of you were in Vietnam that were 18, 19, or 20? Raise your hand. The majority of them did.
Yeah.
I said, you couldn't vote, could you? You could not vote.
Right.
And they said, we couldn't vote. And, now take advantage of what this right that you have, that you fought for.
Absolutely. This has been a great show. We want to thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mr. Vallis, for calling in to give your opinion and for your service. For all of you who have served, we appreciate and respect and honor you all. Thank you to our technical producer, Lady Kai, who keeps us balanced every week, to the best digital media producer we've ever had, Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Production, and to Sean Claiborne, the Illinois National Guard veteran, best co-host of America's Heroes Group. Thank you. We appreciate you.
My best.
To everyone, blessings. Thank you.
AmericasHG.org. Check us out on our website.
Thank you.